You might be wondering, why do I stress resume revamp? Why do I believe that this is important? And this is something that I had to do during my job search period, because I realized that thousands of educators across the world are applying for jobs internationally. And your first point of contact with an employer or a recruiter is your resume. That's the first thing they're going to see. They're going to see your resume before they even meet you as a person. So you want to ensure that your resume grabs their attention from the beginning. They are sorting through hundreds of resumes. So you want to ensure that when they see your resume, they are looking at everything they need to see. So this is why I stress resume revamp. Now, it's important that you understand the difference between a CV and a resume before we move on. Now, you might already know this, but just as a reminder, your CV emphasizes academic accomplishments. They're used when applying for positions in academia, such as fellowships and grants, and it's normally lengthy, right? It outlines every single details probably from basic school all the way up to university. Now, this is not necessary for the international job market. You want to make it short and spicy, right? And that's why I recommend a resume instead of a CV when you're applying for international jobs. The resume focuses on your skills, right? And sometimes it's no longer than 2 pages. If you can minimize it to 1 page, that's even better, right? So that when a recruiter takes up your resume, they don't have to say, do I have to go through this? And they might not want to go through it and just put your resume aside. So you want to ensure that once they look at it, it's simple, it highlights your skills, right? And so they know exactly from the beginning, from looking at your resume, they know whether or not they want to interview you, right? So why revamp your resume for the international job market? And there are a few reasons. One, meeting country-specific expectations. So it's good to have an idea of what is expected if you are applying for a certain country or within a certain region. Now, your international resume should also show that you are culturally flexible or you're culturally adaptive, right? So it should show that you can work in another country, right? Based on the skills or the experiences that you might have. You want to ensure that this pops up in your resume, right? It should also focus on your professional personality. Now, international resumes highlight your skills and group information so that you do the analytical work for the recruiter. This links to what I mentioned before. The recruiter doesn't have to spend time going through a 5-page resume, right? You have already summarized it for them. So it helps to save them time, right? Because they are going through so much resume. So when they look at it, they know exactly who you are and what you're bringing to the table. Now, when you're transforming your domestic resume to an international resume. Now, your domestic resume is what you use to apply for jobs within your home country, or, for example, for us in Jamaica or in our region, in the Caribbean region, right? International resume is when you go beyond the Caribbean region. Now, these are some things that you can note. In some Asian countries, it's common to include personal information about your gender, religion, health status, age, and marital status, etc. While that might not be important in Jamaica, in some region, this is acceptable, right? Also your cross-cultural skills include if you speak a second language, whether you speak it proficiently or you can speak it good enough. You need to highlight these things on your resume because it shows that, you're exposed to other culture. Also, don't be afraid to highlight your technical skills, right? not because you're a teacher. If you have other skills, for example, if you are good at photography or whatever it is, don't be afraid to highlight those skills in your resume, because it shows that you're flexible, right? And it makes you more marketable. Another thing to note, while Western countries focus on promoting yourself to future employers, resume for Eastern country can be more modest in their delivery when you talk about your work achievements. And that's why I do not recommend a CV, right? A CV is elaborate, it shows you off, but a resume is simple and it highlights your skills, right? Moving right along. Now, these are some things that I need you to make a note of. If you have these in your resume, you can make some adjustments. Now I'm going to avoid the first point, to replace objective with professional summary. And this is just semantics, but to make it sound more digestible, you know, when you just have objective, it sounds a bit lame. So you can replace it with professional summary or something that's similar. Avoid baseless statements and fluff words. Sorry. When you don't need to put in your resume statement such as, I am the best math teacher, I am the best English teacher you could ever hire, right? So you want to avoid things like those, right? Remove grammatical and spelling errors. Please pay attention to these things. It might be a turnoff for some employer or recruiter. And I'm also speaking to myself because I'm horrible at spelling. Remove the long list of contact information. Just list the major one. List at least one email address that you know you will be reached at, one phone number that you know if they call that phone number, they're definitely going to get you. You don't need to put a long list of phone numbers and contact details. Just put the major ones, right? So if you have these things in your resume, then you need to remove them. Now, these are things that you must have, and these are specific to the professional, to the, these are specific to this region. Now, I recently met with a recruiter from a company called Global Recruitment Group, something like that. They're located in Canada, but they serve the Middle East. Right. And I was speaking to one of the recruiters, and she was telling me some of the requirements. And one of those requirements is a professional photo, a colored photo, right? Not a selfie. Now, this is not important. For example, in Jamaica, they don't care about a photo on your resume, right? But apparently here in the Middle Eastern region, this is something that they actually request. She sent a list of, initial documents that they would want from a potential hire, and that's one of it, a colored photo, right? So put a colored photo on your resume. It doesn't have to be anything flashy. If you have a photo that from your graduation, your recent graduation, you can put it on it. Or just take a professional photo against a solid color background, ask someone to take it for you as long as it's clear, and put it on your resume. Just ensure that it's not a selfie, right? As you know, you need to have your name and contact information. For this, you can also link an online portfolio or professional website if you have one. Don't be afraid to link it. Remember, you're selling your skills, you're selling yourself. Your professional summary should be 1 to 2 sentences describing who you are and why you are qualified, right? So when they read your professional summary, they should have an idea of who you are as a teacher. Don't waste those 2 sentences talking about how you're hardworking and you have good time management. Use those 2 sentences to tell them the skills that you have as an educator, right? Use those 2 sentences to tell them what you're bringing to the table as an educator, right? So Always examine the job posting clearly for hints. So ensure that your professional summary is editable. Your professional summary should not be a one-size-fits-all. Look at the job posting, look at the requirements, and adjust your professional summary accordingly, right? So that's something to note. Education, include your most relevant and recent qualification. So no need to put your primary school information, your high school information. That will mean zero to an international recruiter. They don't know anything about primary schools and high schools in Jamaica. They don't business about that. They just want to see that you have a degree, right? So focus on your degree and other certifications that are relevant, that are most recent and relevant. So if you have a postgraduate degree, if you have a diploma, if you have a bachelor's, a master's, if you have some form of certificate that is relevant to, you know, your teaching area, put those things on it. No need to outline the 10 CXCs and the 100 CAPEs that you have, right? They don't know anything about CAPE and CXC, so that won't mean much to them. So don't waste the space on your resume to outline those things. All right, professional experience, list all your most recent and relevant experience. Now, for the international job market, they do not count your teaching practice experience, right? I mean, if you have space, then you can list your teaching practice experience, but they do not count it. So if you don't have space, you don't need to list that. Ensure that you outline all your duties to show your value. This is where you get to sell yourself. So while you were teaching at this school, what did you do there? Were you involved in any form of leadership role, any form of initiative? This is where you sell yourself. This is what you should save the space for. Where you're currently teaching, what are you doing there? What duties do you perform currently, right? Also highlight the relevant skills and tools that you use inside the classroom, any certification and relevant accomplishments, and even volunteer work, because this might be appealing to a recruiter. So for example, here in most schools in Kuwait, you have to do some form of community service, and it goes towards your evaluation at the end of the year. So they want to know that it's someone that, you know, is flexible and can perform other tasks outside of the classroom. All right, so I just put this here to show you what my domestic resume look like and what my international resume look like. So my domestic resume is what I used to apply for my first job in Jamaica. This is it. And you can notice some of the things that I mentioned aren't there, right? I don't have a photo on it. I list all the CXC I did and all of the CAPE that want me do. All of those things. I know there are persons in here who might not understand patois, so my apologies for that, right? So I list all these things aren't necessary, right? So this is my domestic resume. It's long, right? And it has a lot of unnecessary information, right? So experience from 2012, that's irrelevant. From 2013, that's irrelevant. So this is what my domestic resume looks like. Now let me show you what my international resume look like. I don't think this is the most recent one, because I'm always working on my resume, guys. You never stop working on your resume. All right. So this is what it looks like. So you notice I've changed the design to make it more appealing. I've added a colored photo, right? I focus more on my skills. I have, in the education area, I only have two things: my bachelor's and my master's degree, right? So I don't focus on the unnecessary things. I try to keep the professional summary, short and spicy. For the contact, I did add social media. So if you know that you have a presentable social media presence, you can add that as well. Ensure that you add your skills. If you have done, another thing that they value is professional development, guys. So if you have done any form of PDs that are relevant to your classroom experience, don't be afraid to list those. They want to see these things, right? All right, so just a few tips. Use a more modern and up-to-date template. So you notice I moved from a Word document to a PDF with a design, right? So if you have your resume on a Word document, I'm going to suggest that you move it to a different, more modern template, right? And convert it to a PDF. That's actually tip number 3. Always submit your resume in PDF format, because the thing with technology is that sometimes it can mess up your Word document. So you might submit your resume in a Word document, but when the recruiter opens it, it's all over the place, right? And that might be a turnoff, right? That might be a turnoff. So you want to, when you submit it in a PDF format, then you're sure that the way you submitted it is what they will see, right? Because when they open the Word document, things can move. And you have experience with Microsoft Word, so you know how things can easily get messed up, right? So always edit your resume to meet the job requirement. Say no to one size fits all. So as I said before, always be ready to edit your resume at any time. Now you can use a free Canva template. If you're familiar with Canva, you can, it's a tool that provides free designs. You can use a Canva template for your resume. So if you currently have it on a Word document, right, you can move it to a Canva template. And you can find many tutorials to help you with that on YouTube.